Hello everyone, good morning and welcome back to Sports Today. We bring you this video segment every single morning to help you catch up with what all is happening in the world of sport, because whilst you need sleep, I need sleep, the whole world needs sleep, the world of sport doesn't really sleep. There's always something or the other going on in all corners of the globe. So to make it easier for you to catch up on what you may have missed out on, we bring you this segment every single day. And believe you me when I say this Monday, we have some very interesting things to talk about when it comes to the world of sport. And let's start off with the issue of Jasprit Bumrah and when exactly to rest him. Now, it's no secret that giving Bumrah some rest prior to the IPL would be a key, let's say, incentive for the BCCI, mainly because they know he's going to play throughout the IPL and you have a T20 World Cup right thereafter. You need him to stay fit. You can't overwork him, you need to give him a bit of rest. Now, there were credible reports that Bumrah would in fact be rested for the third test, which is set to start in 3 days' time really at Rajkot. However, new media speculation now says that Bumrah's rest time has been pushed back to the fourth test instead. The reason being is that they want him fit and firing and fresh for what could potentially be seen as a deciding test in the series, the fifth test that is slated to take place at Dharamshala. It's an interesting call and one I do agree with, because again, I think resting your best pace bowler with the series currently level perhaps doesn't make as much sense. However, if you can get let's say if you can get a 2-1 lead going into the fourth test, then that might be the best time to give Bumrah a little bit of rest, because let's face it, he ain't missing the IPL. He's going to be playing all games even if Mumbai finished rock bottom of the table. So just makes sense that you give him that little bit of rest and recuperation time. You don't want to overwork him and risk yet another injury. Now, speaking of team changes that India could make, I mean, Bumrah is one who could potentially go out in the fourth test, but you could see one very important change take place in the third test at Rajkot itself. This man right here, Bharat, may very well be dropped. Now, it's no secret that Bharat's form and his spot in the 11 had put him under plenty of scrutiny, because again, he's not really nailed the brief when it comes to either his wicket keeping or his batting. His batting returns are below average. His wicket keeping solid but unspectacular. So it's no surprise that there is chatter during the rounds that Bharat could very well be replaced with debutant Dhruv Jurel for the third test. Now, that is big news if true, because again, Bharat is someone who had pretty much a golden opportunity in recent times to nail that spot down. He didn't really impress a lot during the Border Gavaskar Trophy series, but that was still forgiven because those were on much different tracks. Didn't have a great showing in the World Test Championship either, and in fact now in this series against England, he's played 2 games and has looked consistently under par below in those particular games. So the fact is that in the absence of Rishabh Pant, in the absence of Ishan Kishan, Bharat had a golden opportunity, but unfortunately it was a golden opportunity that he could not take. Big news if true. Whether or not it happens, we'll have to wait till Thursday. But you can't say you didn't see this coming. Bharat simply didn't make the most of his opportunities. Now, speaking of making the most of opportunities, there have been 2 players in recent times who have been in the headlines for all the wrong reasons: Ishan Kishan and Shreyas Iyer. Ishan Kishan, of course, has taken a mental break, but there is a little bit of puzzlement over the fact that he's training in the Reliance Academy at Rajkot, but has not yet made a return to domestic cricket, which is basically what he's been told to do if he is to make himself available for selection again. Shreyas Iyer, on the other hand, there was fitness scares around him again, but despite being cleared of those fitness issues, he was dropped from the side for the last 3 tests, and there is speculation that he perhaps isn't as interested in test cricket or in playing the longer formats of the game. In that regard, the BCCI is now cracking the whip and ensuring that if they're going to be telling all their players that in your off time, if you're not part of the test squad during a series, you need to be playing for your state teams. The only exemptions that will be given are to those who are either A, injured, or B, in the NCA recuperating and rehabbing from an injury. And I have to say, it's a very good call, one that I'm a big fan of, for the very simple reason that it will weed out the haves from the have-nots, the wants from the want-nots. This is a good way to figure out which are the players who are really dedicated to making a mark in Test cricket and who want to be serious about pursuing red ball cricket for India. Those who don't follow this order, they simply shouldn't be considered for selection, and there's nothing wrong with that. Not everyone can be a great Test player. Some may very well want to prioritize their white ball career, and that's fine. But this is a good way to ensure that you are not mixing formats and that you aren't selecting players for Tests based on their white ball or specifically IPL returns. Now, switching our focus from the world of cricket to the world of football, and there were a few interesting results yesterday. The biggest perhaps being this one: Manchester United beat Aston Villa 2-1 thanks to a goal from Rasmus Højlund, of course can be seen on the left side of this picture, and a late winner from Scott McTominay, where we heard that before. Now, it's a big win given that United's recent form had been patchy, but there's been more than a little bit of an uptick, and the win against Villa, a side that are currently in the top 4, could not have come for a better time from Erik ten Hag's men, because again, it does give their own push to finish in the top 4 just that little bit of a boost. Now, speaking of sides who are in the top 4, but this time a little higher and pushing for the title, Arsenal only went and demolished fellow London side West Ham 6-0. You heard that right, 6-0 was the scoreline at the London Stadium, which is of course the West Ham home ground. They were 4-0 up before halftime, which led to a lot of West Ham fans actually leaving the stadium, and they added 2 more before the end of full time. Declan Rice, who of course left West Ham United to join Arsenal, was inspirational at his best, provided a couple of assists, scored an absolute worldie, which of course he didn't celebrate, but there was plenty of good signs for the Gunners that their title run this time around may end in a little better way than it did in the last season. More football news, and this time international football. Ivory Coast, who were hosting the Africa Cup of Nations, have only gone on and won the whole thing. That's a pretty big thing for the Ivory Coast, because again, in recent times, many felt that they were perhaps underwhelming at the international level despite having a ton of talent in their ranks. And one player in particular has had a major career revival despite fighting perhaps one of the biggest battles away from the field. I'm talking about Sebastian Haller, who scored the winner in this particular final, but who only a few months back was fighting cancer. You heard that right. He's gone from fighting cancer to winning his country a big trophy. It's a good journey, and we'll do a special video on that, so keep your eyes peeled for that video. But switching focus now to other sports, and this is a bit of a tragic one really, because it involves the death of someone who unfortunately who was actually expected to dominate the sport that he was in for a long time, but unfortunately has will in fact not get the chance to do that because he passed away at a tragically young age. I am of course talking about the man on your screen, who is of course the record holder in the sport of, or is the record holder in the sport of marathon. His name is Kelvin Kiptum, and the 24-year-old unfortunately passed away in a road accident in Kenya, where he was traveling in a car along with his coach, and both of them unfortunately succumbed to the injuries they sustained. It's a bit of a shame because again, only 24 years old, and he had broken his compatriot's record in the Chicago Marathon. Looked like someone who could dominate the sport for years to come, and his life sadly cut very tragically short. Now that we'll end our news wrap with a little bit better news in that regard, and it involves, surprise surprise, American football. But the only reason we're doing it is because we saw the end of the season thanks to the Super Bowl take place, which was of course won by the Kansas City Chiefs. The Kansas City Chiefs beat the San Francisco 49ers in a game that was pretty historic, because only for the second time in the history of the Super Bowl did the match end up going to overtime. They won the cup in overtime, and it was a pretty impressive one because it ended in chaotic fashion, entertaining all around. But there was someone else who ended up stealing the headlines, Taylor Swift. If you're wondering how a pop singer stole the headlines in what is America's biggest sporting event, well, stay tuned. We have a special video coming on that as well. And that is it from us on this edition of the Morning Wrap. Thank you guys so much for joining us. If you enjoy our work, please don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, tap that bell icon, leave us a comment, follow us on Instagram, Twitter and Facebook. Don't forget to download the SportsTak app, and if you're already on the channel, well, then go right ahead and check out some other videos we've done as well. For now though, from my side, it's goodbye. Stay tuned for more.